Nice to have you with us. Perhaps we should begin with this strike. Do you believe it was a stray?
I want to, my gut feeling wants to believe that, knowing fully well the consequences, I don't think Russia will be that daft to, attack one of the NATO countries, knowing fully well the consequences of Article 5, where NATO will always say that an attack on one of the member of the alliance is an attack on the other, and there will be repercussion, very strong repercussion. So I want to believe that it was probably a deflection of the missile that was thrown. So that is my belief at this moment.
But the reactions have been quite varied, with everyone ultimately blaming Russia, even though at the very beginning, in the hours after the attack, after that crashed missile, so many people thought that it was Russia's stray missile that was meant for Ukraine that went into Poland. And already there were fears that this would draw in NATO fully. And some of the theories already indicated that this would be to Ukraine's full advantage if NATO was drawn into the conflict directly by an intended or unintended attack on Poland.
Yeah, I think the whole attack on this small village in Poland, Shevardov, is still under investigation. But looking at the humane side of this whole issue, I just want to believe that it wasn't a direct Russian attack. But that is not to absolve Russia anyway, because if they have not gone on this senseless invasion of Ukraine, we won't be talking about all this attack. And two people lost their lives in Poland yesterday. So for now, I just want to stand on the side of caution and believe that this was not a direct Russian attack. Because if it is found to be, we all know the consequences. This could actually escalate this crisis. The NATO alliance will get involved like they did after the 9/11 terrorist attack on the US. And some people are already saying, could this be the start of the Third World War? And that is a scenario that nobody wants to actually be thinking about, on that nobody wants to see. The consequences will be there for the entire world.
Now, the other side of all of this, of course, is that there is still the potential that this could escalate through another method, because in the aftermath of this attack, for example, Germany is offering to help patrol Polish airspace. Now, if anything were to happen and there was an incident involving Germany and Poland, again, we could still have this same situation, or indeed any of the other countries that are involved. Quickly, President Joe Biden made the statement that seemed to start the bringing down of pressure when he said, look, all the information that he has does not indicate that this is from Russia, even though, all the facts had not been established then. But if, as you said, something else, draws in NATO into this conflict, we are back to square one, aren't we?
Yes, we will definitely be back to square one, Ladi. And I was really, excited with this, swift response of, the elderly president of the United States, Joe Biden. He quickly summoned a meeting of the G7 and NATO officials during the G20 meeting. And I'm sure they looked at it. They looked at the whole issue, because and I think the Russians also were very quick to deny, because they also know that this crisis, if it escalates beyond where it is now, that little window for negotiation that a lot of us are expecting that may likely come in the spirit of Christmas and the New Year, will be quenched. So, and the Polish president himself had also tried to, diffuse pressure by saying that it is very unlikely that this was from Russia. Russia knows the consequence of, attacking a NATO member. I don't believe that Russia will go to that extent. Because if you look at the war anyway, at the moment, Russia is not winning it. They are just attacking civilian targets. 85 missiles were thrown into Ukraine yesterday. Militarily, I think Russia know that the game is as good as up.
But given that there are other players in this situation that have airily remained silent, one would have expected that some of the other people who know the consequences of what was being discussed and what could happen if the discussions went another way other than President Joe Biden. And I'm happy that you mentioned the fact that the elderly U.S. president, in this instance, his age and his experience in international affairs came to bear almost immediately, because a lot of the other leaders who were sitting with him were much younger, had not experienced this kind of situation before, and therefore their own reactions may have been different, except for what he said. But is there a situation where you see that it is possible now? Because you talked about negotiations. The grain deal is up on Saturday for renewal. Russia has indicated in no way that it is prepared to renew it. The Ukrainians are busy fighting off missiles, and NATO now is more fully engaged on the military side, it would appear. So where does that leave the grain deal?
Yeah, I think for the grain deal, which was brokered earlier, I believe it will be renewed. And it will be renewed basically for economic reasons, because Russia too is reeling under the sanctions that the West and NATO allies have, put on it. So I think this grain deal will be renewed, but Russia is just, playing hard to catch. They're trying to see if they can, come into this renewal deal, from a stronger point. So it will definitely be renewed. And another thing that I want to also point out is when you look at the this military invasion, the way it's been going for Russia in the last 2 weeks, exactly, you will know that there's been a lot of retreat from the Russian side, and information available also shows that there is some growing dissent more than ever before within the Russian political elite, the population. People are getting weary of this whole military invasion that many thought was going to be done within was going to be done with fear within 2 to 3 weeks. So there's a lot of pressure also on President Putin from the home front. And from what we are hearing, some top generals in the Russian army, they are beginning to get really uncomfortable with the path that this crisis is taking, because it's becoming a national disgrace. That Russia, has been on this trajectory since February. Next week, this is going to be 9 months.
Next week, it will be 9 months. But let me bring you to some of the fallout of this crisis, perhaps maybe even before this crisis, and that is to come to where you are in Britain. And I know the last time I spoke to you, we both discussed the possibility of nurses going on strike. At that time, they had indicated their intention to join the railways and bus drivers at the same time that Rishi Sunak was just trying to settle down into the prime ministerial seat and try to see what he could do economically to help households in that country. How is all that playing out? Is the help finally reaching the households? I remember when I spoke to you last, we were expecting that each household was due something like £500 to arrive. So yeah, has that? Do you have any information about how that is proceeding?
Yeah, thank you, Ladi, for that. A lot of households, including myself speaking to you, we're receiving, some support from the government with respect to energy costs. The other day, I was checking my meter and I saw, about 60 something pounds, and I had to ask, did anybody make any purchase? And my wife was like, no, I didn't. So I knew right away. So that is already happening. I also speak to colleagues at work and friends and families around here. So that is happening already. And like you pointed out, this whole energy crisis is a major fallout from the Ukraine Russian crisis we talked about, some minutes ago. So people are getting the support, but there's still that feeling that the 450 pounds support is not far-reaching enough. So, but um, we are all watching, and we are hoping that we'll get more support as the days go by. More so when the winter season is going to really kick in, beginning from next week. It's getting really cold here now. It's going to get colder as we go into December.
How about the issue of the strikes, the nurses, the rail workers, and so on?
Yes, the strike, the nurses, they've done their ballot. The biggest union, the Royal College of Nursing, they've balloted and their members have opted for strike. Government is negotiating with them, but there is a real issue there. The nurses are looking at about 17% increase, and the government is not willing to go beyond 5%. That the gap on the negotiating table is just so much. So we are really hoping that the strike doesn't go ahead. Traditionally, during this winter season, the health system here at the NHS is always under pressure. So if this strike was to go ahead, the first of its kind in 106 years, is going to cause a lot of damage to the already fragile health system we have here, especially during this winter season. So we hope it will not go on. For the rail workers, a strike was cancelled last week because the government called them to the negotiating table, and that at the moment is going well. So we are hoping that some of these strikes, they don't take place. But fast for citizens, everyone here is reeling under the yoke of inflation. Yesterday, the Office of National Statistics released data for the month of October, and we found that the inflation rate increased from 10.1% in September to 11.1% in October. And there is projection that inflation will still go up. So really difficult times here at the moment.
Indeed, it looks quite difficult. But one can only hope for the best, as you said, and that some of these things do not come to the end of the line before people saner heads prevail. Thank you so much, Dr. Abons, for your time and for your interesting information and perspective this morning.
Thank you, Ladi. Have a great day.
You too. And after the break,